Good morning and welcome to the Kellogg Garden YouTube channel. Well, morning for me anyway. You could be watching this at any time of day. So today I'm just finishing up watering. The sun is coming out. You can see in the background I've got a lot going on back there with all those fruit trees. And so I thought today I would talk a little bit about watering and my setup. Recently, Kellogg did a impromptu little poll on Instagram, and I was really surprised with how many people hand water over using a watering system. And I understand it because I hand water some things, and when I first got started, I was hand watering a lot. But I realized really fast that I needed to set up a system if I wanted to be successful, because it's hard to maintain and stay up on your watering schedule. Now, behind me, this is a professional setup, right? We are on acreage. We're on about 3 acres right now. There's an avocado grove, and on top of that, about 20 other fruit trees on the property. So this setup is pretty extensive, right? There are some things that are on timers. It's underground. Some are right by the trees. Some do areas. This is not what I'm talking about today. That is done by a landscaper or a professional or somebody who's very, very adventurous and thinks that they can manage that. I'm talking about little garden beds and basic setups. But I think my basic setup will help you be a little more successful. And I do it for my raised beds and for containers. All right, so I'm going to show you the materials that I use, and then my beds, and then we'll go from there. All right, so let's jump in. Okay, so let's look at the material that you're going to need to set up a basic system. So first thing you need is you need to run a line. This is a 1/2-inch line here. You can get it in black or you can get it in this brownish tan color here. I've done it in both. I like this color because it blends in a bit more with the pavers that I have here. And yes, I care about looks, so I want it to be a bit hidden. You can also, if you're going over the dirt, you can trench for it, so that way you don't see it, and of course you don't trip over it. So this would be your main component, and then what you want is you want a 1/4 inch that you're going to run in your beds. Now, if you have a pretty large bed or you're doing in-ground, I'm doing raised bed, so I need smaller. If you're doing in-ground, I see a lot of growers use just the 1/2 inch. I like to use the combination of the two. And especially when you're working in a container or a raised bed, I think the 1/4 inch and the 1/2 inch work together pretty well. I just don't want to take up too much room. So your 1/2 inch, you need some of that. Then you're going to buy 1/4 inch line. So I have 3 types of 1/4 inch. I have one, they call it, a drip line. It's a micro line. It's got holes in it that'll drip right by the plant, so when you're laying it out. Then I have a 1/4 inch line that has no holes in it. I use this to run from the 1/2 inch to a plant and that needs a bit more water, so I might use a bubbler or dripper at the end of one of these lines. I also use this for my containers. So as I'm running my 1/2 inch, I'll run this line into a container with a bubbler. And then I just got this 1/4 inch, which is a soaker hose. I haven't used the soaker hoses in my garden yet because my beds are smaller and most of the soaker hoses are really thick. So I haven't tried them in my bed. So I'm going to try this as a little experiment to test the 2 systems. One is the drip line and one is the soaker hose. So I'll do some future videos and tell you what I think of doing one or the other. So you need your lines, that's one. And then to secure your lines, I have these landscaping staples. You can buy it in boxes at, like this. Got a big box of them, and these are good for a lot of things, not just running your irrigation lines, but also if you're going to do any covers. I use sometimes for my smaller plants, I'll protect them with a little bit of chicken wire, and I use these to hold my chicken wire down. So I really like these. These can be used for all sorts of things. So you'll need that. Then you also need connectors to connect your lines together. I'm going to show you a close-up of one of the beds. I run a 1/2 inch down the bed, then I use an elbow connector to run it up the side, then over the side, and down the side. So I have probably, what, 1, 2, 3 elbow connectors, actually four elbow connectors per bed, because sometimes I'll put it down at the bottom so I can secure the line right next to the leg of the bed, so that way you don't see it. So 3 to 4 elbow connectors. This little T guy is to connect 2 lines together and then run your main line to your faucet. So I bought some of these. I bought some elbow connectors. You'll need a female connector that either goes to your hose, it can go to a hose or a faucet, or a pressure regulator. So this is a pressure regulator, and it can go to this. Now, they have screens in them, or you can get them without a screen. I have a screen on my timer, so I don't have the ones with screens in them, but you can get them with screens to kind of filter that water a little bit. So pressure regulator, because it's coming out of that faucet pretty fast, your female, and then your line. Now, if you are going to use a timer, so I have a timer, then your timer goes to your faucet, then your pressure regulator goes on your timer, and then the female goes on this, and then all of this hooks to my 1/2 inch. Okay. Now, this timer is a Bluetooth timer, so I can control it through an app. It's battery powered. So you put some batteries in here, and I'm noticing that it runs through the batteries pretty fast. This is called Beehive. That's the company I got it from. I just started using it. I'll do a video about what I think about it. But you can run it from an app. You can set up a schedule. So I really like that. It is supposed to read the pressure of your water faucet, but I don't find that it actually does that well. Maybe I just don't have great pressure, but so I'll go into that a bit more. So a timer. The other thing I put on my faucet is I put one of these little Y guys on there, so I can run a hose or 2 systems or 1 system and a hose. So I just have some options. You can find these on Amazon. You can find these at your garden center. They're pretty inexpensive. You can shut a line off, or you can keep the line open. Now with your system, you'll keep the line open, but for a hose that might leak or something, I can shut that line off. So you'll need that. And then you need little connectors, and you need drippers and bubblers. Now, I told you I use a drip line for most of it, right? So I wind my drip line through, and I use this as the primary watering, or you use a soaker hose for the primary watering. But there are going to be plants that need more water than others. So I like to have other options. This is a bubbler or dripper. You stake it in. I put this at the end of my 1/4 inch, but then I can also run a line straight from my 1/2 inch, and I can put it next to a plant that needs a bit more water than it's getting from just the drip line. So you have options like this where you have little stakes and you stake them in. Then you have bubblers that you can put straight in your 1/2 inch. You just some of them are barbed, you can push them in, or you can use this little guy to puncture holes in there. Evan already had this. I've tried it. I think it's okay. I would rather just use his drill and drill it in. It's a little bit faster. So you can use bubblers. Now, for those people who do in-ground and who really focus on the 1/2 inch, you just pop this into your 1/2 inch. It won't pop into the 1/4 inch. You also have little flagged drippers or sprayers. They kind of spray out. Now, they come in different colors. You'll see them in blue, green, I think yellow. And if you look closely, it'll say a number and either a GH or an LH, so gallons per hour or liters per hour. This one is 4 liters an hour, and it's just telling you the flow rate on it. So you can either go lower or higher depending on what you need. And these actually have little barbed ends, and they can go straight into your 1/2 inch. Now, you'll also get little shut-offs. Well, so when you run your 1/2 inch, you need to close off the end of the line. So they have goof plugs that close off the end of your 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch line. You can use something like this to just pinch it, and I'll show you a close-up of this, or something like this, which pinches your 1/4 inch, so you secure that line. There are lots of little connectors that are for your 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch, or 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch. You've got connectors all over the place. When you walk into that garden center or hardware store, you're going to just see a wall or aisles of irrigation stuff. Now, I know that can seem a little overwhelming, because I know the first time I walked in, I was like, where do I even start? First of all, ask for help. There is no such thing as a dumb question. They're there to help you, and they'll help you set up that system pretty quickly. Some sell kits where you can get it all together, so you could buy it that way. I have been back and forth now that I'm setting up my system. I've gone back a few times to get some different connectors. Lucky for me, this box here is Evan's. He has all the stuff for that would go on a professional line. You saw the watering that was happening behind me earlier. He has tons of stuff, so I can break into his stuff. His stuff is dirty though, to be honest. You gotta clean it up a little bit. So I've gone back and forth to the store just a bit as I really fine-tune my line. But don't be overwhelmed by it. Really, you should be excited about it. There are so many ways to do it. They're pretty inexpensive. They're either, you know, a few cents or under $1 or $1. And of course you can buy things online in bulk. So you can buy, I think you can get like 50 of these or 100 of these for less than $10 or around $10. To me, I thought that was a lot, but as you start setting multiple beds up, you start to realize, okay, I might actually use a lot more of these than I thought. So let's go look at a bed that I have set up right now, and how I'm running a line, and how I'm going to incorporate some of my containers, because I want those to be on the system as well. All right, so let's go look. Let's come over here and look at the bed. So you can see here, I've got a line run. And for this bed, I've run it along the side. So it's on the side. I ran it down the bed. And then I put a little elbow connector on it. And then I put I cut a little bit more line. I measured what I needed, and then I have another elbow, another line, and another elbow. And I did that so it sits nicely on my bed. You don't have to go that crazy with it. If you don't care how it looks, you don't need to put that many. Now, one thing I could put on here, and I'll show you guys that, I'll see if they have it at the hardware store, but I could put another little connection here that would be a shut-off valve. They have little simple shut-off valves that could shut this whole bed off. So I'll make sure and show you what that looks like. And again, all you're doing is you just cut this line, and then you basically shove it in your connectors. So, you know, you just push it in here. And it takes a little elbow grease, but pretty easy to do. I'm not a big person, and I can get it done. So I've run that line, since we're only going to be here for another month and a half. I've just run the line along the ground, and it's near 2 fabric pots that I'm going to run lines to. and I ran it across. Now right here, I really should dig in a little trench so nobody trips over it, because it is in an area that the dogs and I walk through. But I kind of just ran it around. It comes over here. And what I did is I tied it to an existing line with a little T connector. So I cut the end of it off, the line off, and I cut this line and I put a little T connector here. And all of this is connected to this faucet. And again, here is my little Y faucet connection. I've got a hose connected to one side, and then I've got that beehive timer on the other side. I've got my little flow control here, and then, or my pressure regulator, and then I have my line pushed into this, and then it's connected. So really, and then these two beds back here are connected to the black line, and this bed is connected to the brown line. So once I had all that run, what I did was I put in one of my connectors, punched a hole, put in a connector that would allow me to put that 1/4 inch line in. And then I ran my 1/4 inch drip line all the way around. Now some people run this straight on their bed and maybe loop at the top and run it straight back down. I don't really plant in straight lines. Nature doesn't do straight lines, and Bridget doesn't do straight lines. So what I did was I loop it so I can get a bit more around. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's watering, so you can see why I do that. Okay, I've turned on the watering system so you can see what it looks like when it's watering. Now, a plant like this garlic here, I can actually water it from multiple sides. So I have it dripping here, there's a drip here, and a drip here. So 3 sides are dripping on this one plant, which is why I kind of do that loop. And then I take my staple and I secure it down so I get it where I want it to be. And you can see this little guy's really splurting, yeah. And then there's one here. So a plant right here could get some good water from this, right? And then again, I have my tomato plant, and I'm getting my tomato plant from four different areas with that loop. Now, if I need to, what I'll do is I can punch a hole in here, and I could run a line out, not just a basic 1/4 inch line, and then I could put this type of dribbler on it. So this allows out more water, so you can see that there. I've closed it down a little bit, and you open it up, and it gives you more water than those little drips will do. So for plants that need a lot more water, you can use something like that. Plus, you can tap into this line and use something like that also. So that's pretty much my setup, pretty basic. I'll show you the pots. I'm going to run a couple lines to these pots. They're not beautiful right now. I have lots of onions that I planted in the winter, and I'm going to start removing some of these. But these onions are awesome because they are protecting that eggplant right there from pests. I have barely any pests that bother this pot. And then this tomato plant is surrounded by garlic, and probably add in a couple more plants in here. I just want to see this tomato plant grow, but I want to run a line to this container here. And then I have some containers over here that I may run a line to as well. Okay, so now you got to see how I ran the drip irrigation on one of my raised beds. I have 5 raised beds that are on drip line. Actually, I have 4, and I have a 5th one that I'm about to run some soaker hose to. And I'll let you know what I think about that drip versus soaker in an upcoming video. So 5 raised beds, and I'm just starting to tap into my 1/2-inch line with my pots. So I will keep you guys updated on how that goes. Now, the one recommendation I would make is to plan better than I did. I just went into my local nursery garden center and started just grabbing stuff. I would measure things out from your beds to your faucet, especially for that main line, for that 1/2-inch line, so you know that you can get all the way there. Now, I did know that I wanted to make sure that my line flowed nicely on the bed, so it was really flush with the bed. So I knew I needed 3 to 4 of my elbows to really get it to lay nicely. And then I wanted some T connectors so I could connect the beds together and run just one line to the faucet. So I did plan that out, but that was about it. When I got there, they talked to me about the female adapters. So I got a few of these. You may think you only need one, but then you end up cutting lines or running to different faucets. So I have a few of these and a few pressure regulators for different faucets, depending on how I run it. That wind is kicking up now. The Y connector that we looked at for the faucet, I did know I wanted one of those ahead of time too. And this I ended up ordering online just so I could keep my hose and water things that weren't going to be hooked up to it. So that was important. I added a bit later my timer. So I used a basic timer in the beginning, and then I decided to go with the Beehive, which was more of an app based. And I like that because it keeps a history of my watering schedule also. So if things are going well, I can look at how much I've been watering, or if I'm over watering or under watering, I can kind of plan accordingly. So I like that as well. I would say that honestly, it seems overwhelming. Don't get overwhelmed. It's kind of fun planning this out. And if you have to run to the store a couple times or jump online to grab a couple of connectors, I mean, that's just part of it. So I appreciate you joining me, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, or I'll go ask somebody else who knows more than me to answer that for you. So leave your comments down below, and then any resources I have for you, I'll leave in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and tap that like button. We'd really appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Happy gardening.